Well, the food supply here in the United States is experiencing some major problems. You've been hearing about them with restaurants shut down. Crops are going to waste. Meanwhile, more people are lining up at food banks, which cannot keep up with demand. Dave Puglia, CEO of Western Growers, joins us now. Dave, good morning. Thank you so much for being here. There's so many different angles to look at this story. We've heard from Tyson Foods talking about a major disruption to our food supply, possible meat shortage. You're looking at the crops angle, the vegetable, the produce angle of all this. How has this pandemic affected our food supply?
Thanks for having me, Sandra. It's been very, very difficult. We have in this country highly efficient and very safe food supply infrastructure. Those supply chains have been well developed over the years, and when this shutdown happened, it literally blew them up. We are trying to repiece all of our supply chains to be able to continue providing safe and affordable and fresh food to consumers through grocery outlets. But the loss of the retail or the restaurant sector really threw a grenade into the middle of our food supply chain.
So Dave, Western Grower supplies more than half of the fruits and vegetables in the United States. Your farmers are based in California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado. So give us an example of how you have had to just see some of that food go to waste because essentially you don't have an end destination for it.
Last week, I was in the desert area of California in Imperial County in the southeast corner of the state as one of my members plowed 350 acres of very high quality romaine lettuce right back into the ground. There was literally no place to put that product. We've more than doubled our donations to food banks in California, and still there is so much fresh produce that, of course, is highly perishable and doesn't have a market because of the loss of the restaurant and food service sector, that these farmers really have no choice. They spend about half of the total dollar harvesting the crop. If there's no place to sell that crop, you can't spend that money on harvest, and you have to put it back in the ground, and it's really tragic.
Dave, let me ask you a question that we often hear when we have been covering this disruption to the food supply during this pandemic, and that is if you go to some of your local grocery stores, there's been a rush on produce and fresh fruits and vegetables. Why can't that produce, those fruits and vegetables that you're talking about, make it directly to the grocery stores, or is that a realistic question?
It is a realistic question. The difficulty comes in flipping over our infrastructure that quickly. The perishable food, the fresh produce that we supply to restaurants, to hotels, to universities, isn't packaged for retail. We have requirements for labeling in grocery stores that we don't have for restaurants, for example. And so the infrastructure has to be converted, and even then you would have a huge oversupply with every farmer in America who grows fresh produce trying to send that product to grocery stores. So it's going to take time to adjust. It's very, very difficult. The losses to the industry, to farmers, are huge and mounting.
Dave, the biggest part of your job now is looking into the future and planning for what is to come. Here on a day a week where we're starting to talk about some areas of the country reopening, some restaurants having the ability to possibly reopen soon. How do you plan, and what is your forecast for when you might see some pickup in that demand again?
Obviously, the sooner the better, but we can't really predict it, and that's one of the huge difficulties that our farmers face, especially in the West, as they're making planting decisions right now, whether to invest in seed and in irrigation and everything else for a crop that will mature in 90 days, 120 days. There may not be a restaurant market then. We just don't know. We hope there is. But that's the gamble that farmers have to take, and that's why the federal government has to step in and help bridge farmers across this divide, because too many of them have already been harmed so badly economically, and more will be because of the disruption to the market.
We all have interest in keeping that food supply chain going and those farmers going. Dave Puglia, we hope to have you back again soon to give us an update. Thanks so much for being here this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, meantime.